And it's so simple, but getting to that point of surrender from a neurological standpoint, there is tremendous reorganization going on in the brain in that moment. There's analysis, there's judgment, there's the past and the future, there's good and the bad. What are you going to do tomorrow? What happened this time? And you're trying to weigh all those things out. And the brain is taking new knowledge and it's saying, how am I going to fit it into these networks? Mm-hmm. And so there's a shuffling that goes on biologically. But we know that there comes a moment within the creative process, they know this scientifically and neurologically, is that in every creative process, sooner or later you just stop. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, and I've talked to friends that are authors, best-selling authors, they throw the stuff down and they go, I am not doing this book. And they walk away and they go for a walk and all of a sudden they're writing on paper and they're mm-hmm. in the bathroom and in the shower and you got out of the way. And so that creative process is the same thing in the reinvention process of self, because there has to be antagonism, there has to be struggle, because you're breaking out of the mold of yourself, and then when there's that pause, there's an elevation or a spike of gamma brainwave patterns in the right hemisphere, which is the creative center, and all of a sudden you go, that's so simple. And you have it when you're brushing your teeth or washing the dishes or watching your kids sleep, or you're changing a radio station in your car, and all of a sudden you get it and you just start laughing. But that process, I think that if we practice it more and more, it'll become a skill.
Yeah.
But I think every great person, creative-wise, had to separate themselves from social and consensus reality to be able to really go through that process. And they were considered crazy people, but you feel like you're going crazy. And you, as the quantum observer, your job is to keep observing the outcome. Now, the details should be left to a greater mind. In getting out of the way so that the universe can organize it in a way that's right for you, in a way that you haven't thought of, means that you start surrendering the hows and the whens. And there's a physiology to tickling. You cannot be tickled if you know where you're going to be tickled and when. And so all of a sudden we're getting in the way from the tickling experience. Now, the universal law is free will. Well, if you're going to get in the way, I'm going to wait. And when you get out of the way, I'm going to do it. So quantum field, the observer, that you is both personal and universal within you and all around you. And we just haven't been conditioned into understanding that there's a partnership in that process. So because where in the world do you see that? Consumerism, everything else doesn't leave us much room. But the beauty about what you're saying is when you get to that point of peace, you're basically saying, I've done everything I can, and I'm giving it up to the universe or to the flow or whatever you want to call it. Now, that means then that the way that you think it's going to happen, when it doesn't happen that way, I've conditioned myself into understanding that's a good sign. Like, oh God, this is going in a very different way. And instead of trying to reorganize it, I just go, well, I've been addressing this in my mind for the last 3 months, so I think it's going to go this way. And obviously, I know that I'm imprinting and observing a new reconfiguration of reality, a reconfiguration of patterns of information. That's what quantum observation is. But the details, how that collapses into an event, I'm just going to live as if I already know it's going to happen. I'm going to be at peace with it. Everybody else can be fired up. And then when it comes, it's going to be like you just cooked the best meal, and now it's time to sit down and take your time and enjoy it. And then our senses should be the last to experience what our mind has created. So holding back on the urgency and the vigilance means that you have to stay away from those stress hormones, because those stress hormones of impatience and aggression and frustration and fear and anxiety and discouragement, those are all driven by the hormones of stress. So that causes us to function as materialists. Those chemicals cause us to focus on our bodies, on everything in the environment, everything with time. We obsess about time. But the quantum model says you got to become nobody, no thing, no time. You got to get beyond that. So when we're living in that state of